I'd like to start off the first question to Cortilia. Cortilia, please share with us, a little bit about your business and how AI has been integrated into your business model, as well as how do you envision it changing medical education. The floor is yours.
Sure, thanks TJ, and thank you everybody. Thanks for having me this afternoon. Our business is actually integrating virtual reality, aka mixed reality, and artificial intelligence, as TJ already mentioned, into assisting the delivery and access of medical education. I think Julia mentioned the story, right? Why did we decide to embark on this particular journey is when I was working out in my previous role, I was flying quite often across different countries, looking at how physician, how surgeon, how medical professional at the front line are being trained in Mexico, Brazil, Indonesia, China, Europe, aka just quite a number of the places. And I realized that a lot of time, a lot of people do have the ambition, and medical service is a very essential, integral part of us to preserve our quality of life, no matter at the early stage of our life stage or later part. Right? Then I realized that there's a lot more technology can bring to the table to assist the access. And I think we are now all based in Southeast Asia. For us, access is definitely something we see day in, day out, how technology, particularly deep tech, help to assist to widespread and the wider reach for the entire population. So when we decided to embark on this particular technology to transform the entire education, that was back in 2019, before COVID time. So the idea is really, if we look at fintech, if we borrow the lesson and example from Grab, from even other technology company out there, what they really do remarkably is to allow the access from unbanked population or people who may not have access to a very convenient, right, or very easy access to cash, right? That's the idea. So when we are doing this particular virtual reality mixed with artificial intelligence, our vision first is really to enable this access. Second, when we look at the artificial intelligence, what can this really do? We talk a bit about it. Personally, I don't view virtual reality or artificial intelligence being an industry. All this technology need to assist a particular use case or generate value in particular sector. So when I look at education as a whole prior to COVID, we already see that a lot of learning pathway, a lot of learning effectiveness, how exactly we learn, how do we ensure in different contexts, you may be sitting in the remote area of Cambodia, or you are actually in the big city like Manila, exactly what is the learning to us and what is the effectiveness and ultimately the assessment that will enhance our competency and subsequently we can all outshine ourselves in the global stage. That's the challenge we really want to use the artificial intelligence to tackle. So with the pandemic evolves, still every day, sadly, we see it's on the news every day that this country particular probably have access issue again to education, not just because of the region, but also because of COVID. We are very happy to continue on this journey and enable some of this access issue that can be addressed even further. So I think a lot more, we are going to see the deep tech really transform different sector to address quite a number of access issue. I think later part we will have a lot more macro discussion, but I think that's where my passion is and how the whole team across different countries envision ourselves to play the role.
Thank you so much, Cortilia. The use of deep technology to enable access. For our participants, I think it's a good thought to start off in this journey this afternoon. So, Cortilia, to round off our this session, as we look beyond the pandemic, as we look into the future economy, as in Singapore we like to call it, how do you see deep tech changing the landscape of your particular sector, and perhaps even the other sectors that you are familiar with?
Sure, that's a very big question. Maybe just an observation first about deep tech. I think Julia already shared quite a fair bit about like when the technology was leading ahead of the need, how the government come in and support. The first time I was maybe encounter with AI, that was back in 2006, 2007, when I was still in Seattle, United States. And what I have observed is past decade, when we talk about AI, a lot of effort have been put in to really build up the algorithm to understand the nature of the data. Particularly, I'm in healthcare, so from diagnosis, treatment, all the way into the elderly care. There's been a lot of conversation about how do we how do we train the model algorithm with the accuracy that we truly can make it useful. 10 years later, interestingly, some of the topics that I have come across 15 years ago still exist, like compliance issue with the pharmaceutical medicine intake. How do we make sure we understand certain disease reading, even say Google or the tech giants kind of jump on the game to read the MRI, CT image for diagnosis and treatment. It makes you wonder what happened in the past decade. So the observation from me has been a lot of effort in the past 10 years or 15 years are to really create what we call medtech, make the technology work, more the innovation, make something right. But then now 10, 15 years later, what we are now encountering is how does a user embrace AI? How would the AI truly generate value in our own daily decision and life? So I will give an example. I think you can, some of the participants may find interesting. You can check it out. Google created a very interesting piece of software that claimed to have about 95% accuracy to detect any diabetic's eye. So when you have diabetes, it's very likely you have certain eye issue develop later. So they read the images taken by the nurses in the local clinic. They can actually accurately predict whether you may develop the eye condition. Subsequently, you can be the specialist for a further treatment. It was deployed in Thailand last year, but it humbled down with some of the failure. And this is the key point that I'm coming to is the true issue is no longer technology, it's how the clinical workflow, how the user embark on this particular technology and integrate it into your daily decision. So what we are going to see in the future is more and more deep tech company, no matter startup, mid-sized company, even giant tech company like Google, Facebook, they will encounter this. How would the user truly understand this piece of technology innovation work in their value chain of the sector and being able to embrace it and being able to really integrate it in their daily business? That's going to be the key trend that we are going to see, no matter now or even in the new normal. Pandemic has accelerated the technology adoption. So we're also seeing a lot more big tech companies realize that they really need to understand how the user will intake the technology, will uptake the technology, will adopt the technology, truly how it will work in their life. But tricky enough, it will also mean some part of the value chain in each and every sector is going to be disrupted. The disruption may not mean the bad thing. I will give you another interesting example. Is in the HR business, a lot of companies that I come across, they have tried to use data to manage how they calculate KPI achievement for their employee, meaning you achieve the KPI, you get a bonus, right? In the past, you always hire a team of data analysts just to try to compile the sales number, market share number, price, and all. If you had 185 countries in your portfolio, then you spend months to calculate. Now, a lot of these can be managed by data. So what I start seeing is more and more HR hours are freed up to handle mental health issue, to handle motivation issue, to handle how can I make my employee more productive, but not necessarily from just whipping them and get more sales target achieved. It's more about how can we work with the aspect of the overall wellness of the employee, subsequently leading up to the productivity change. So I can see some of this value chain, after it gets disrupted, it will become interesting for certain main hour or certain dedication, more towards some of the soft element that AI or technology may not be able to address. But today, if those time is being freed up by the deep tech adoption, then we start seeing more and more of that can happen. I think more and more we are going to see in the new normal that some of these deep tech finally get into the right place for their use cases, their application, and hopefully with all of this technology help to transform our attention in our professional life onto something that we find even more worth to really talk about and increase the well-being of the population. I think that's why when Amy talk about inclusion, discrimination, bias is very much to my heart, because working in healthcare space, this is something we're confronted every day, but we also see quite a number of a good conversation generated just by realizing the natural bias of the data set and how we humans need to place ourselves on top of AI to address some of the professional life or private life, some of the conversation and topic we truly need to dedicate our time to. So that's sort of my observation.
Thank you very much, Cortilia. Very good observations, and I do agree fully with you. I want to thank all our speakers for sharing your thoughts,